Yo, what's going on guys? Ian77 here. In today's video, we're going to be playing the Royal Global Tournament, and so this global tournament is actually going to be for CRL. So in the latest global tournament, they actually made it so the top 128 players will move on to the next stage of CRL, and you can actually compete for like, I think $50,000 it is, and also a chance at a golden ticket, which will allow you to enter World Finals guaranteed. So really important to try your best this tournament. Not sure how many of you guys are actually like interested in like CRL at all, but I feel like it's a good opportunity for anyone trying to like test out their skill level, but then if they never really had the chance to. And yeah, so in today's video I'm going to be using Hog Rider here, the Hog Queen deck. So I'm not sure if I actually like recorded too many videos of Hog ever since the EQ nerf. Maybe I record like one, I think, with the actual nerfed EQ, but it is quite a lot worse. The only reason I'm still using it is because I feel like in global tournaments it's really good to just use your comfort decks, even if they're maybe not the strongest or the best in the meta, because if you just use like random decks, it's often like really hard to actually do too well. So I am going to be using Hog here, but I will probably be like rotating decks. I think I will use a few different decks, but I'm mostly going to try to stick to Hog. I might even try like some Hog Giant Skeleton, which I might make a video on pretty soon actually, because Giant Skeleton did get a pretty good buff in the latest set of balance changes, like more HP and more damage. And yeah, so I will be explaining my games a little bit more here since I'm going to be switching decks pretty often. So in this first match we're going to be up against Lava Loon, and okay, he does get a really good fireball there, and he does also have arrows, kind of unfortunately, so he is going to kind of wreck our queen there, and he will take our tower. But when you're running Hog with queen, you can't really defend too well if you don't have the Tesla in your deck or anything like that, so you can't really ever have enough air defense to stop the big Lava Hound pushes too much, unless you can like cycle multiple cannons sometimes. But most of the time you're just going to have to kind of like deal a lot of damage to their towers and just make sure that you can defend okay, but you don't have to like worry about defending like super well or anything like that. And I'm gonna cycle to another cannon here, so even though we can't play another queen because we already have one on the board, the second cannon is gonna pull the balloons, so we are gonna stop it pretty nicely. And okay, wasn't really paying too much attention to those barbs, so they probably will get a good amount of damage, but we did take his right tower essentially. Just need to use a log on it right here, and hopefully Hog will get a couple hits right there. Okay, not gonna get like the third hit, but looking pretty good here. And just gonna clean in the middle. He probably will try to go with the lava in the pocket, so this is gonna be like super sketchy right here. But the queen with the ability should be able to do pretty good here, and we do have Fire Spirit to clean up the lava pups, so hopefully we can defend pretty well. And gonna go with the Hog at the same time right here, just to make sure that we're applying some pressure so he can't really go in with his huge push. And yeah, he did almost 3-crown us here as well, but I'm just gonna cycle an Earthquake here. It does do a lot less damage than it used to, so you can't really like reliably cycle Earthquakes. You're gonna have to focus a lot more on getting chip damage with your Hog Riders rather than going with as many EQs. But we do get the Hog hit there, so that will be a good game against a pretty hard matchup. Alright, hopping in the next match here, we're gonna be facing this guy, and we are still running Hog EQ with Queen here. Just wanted to keep using it. I feel like it's not the best deck, but at the same time, like, even though the Earthquake did get a few nerfs, I feel like even though it's not like the best deck in the game anymore, or like something close to that, I feel like it's still a really solid deck because it's always so good on defense still, and it still beats a lot of decks, even though you can't really rely on the Earthquake cycle as much. So the Earthquake itself is quite weak, but it does do quite good with the other cards in the deck. And Queen also did get a nerf in the latest set of balance changes, but honestly the Queen nerf did basically nothing, so only really the Earthquake nerf is what you're going to notice a lot right here. But we're going to be probably facing, yeah, some RG cycle deck here, so should be an interesting matchup. We do have pretty good responses to most of his stuff, but his Queen could be a little bit annoying right here. Might have to, probably gonna have to go in with a defensive Hog here. The only other option is to cannon, but we want to save it for his RG, so even though it's like a really weird play, you guys might think, it actually is kind of good to defensive Hog sometimes against the Archer Queen, and we are going to let it get one shot here just so that we can save the skeletons for the hunter and make sure that we don't really get in like an awkward cycle or something like that. And yeah, so he's probably going to be running lightning here. Pretty much every RG deck runs lightning right now, so going to go with the queen up high here, force out the fisherman, which is pretty good for us because now our hog rider should be able to get some damage when we use it after this defense. And yeah, RG won't even get a single shot right there, so a super clean defense right here. Queen gonna kind of DPS down the fisherman, so just gonna ignore it. And even against RG, it's actually not a bad idea to activate your king tower because it did allow us to like defend pretty flawlessly there. And he's gonna go with the queen e-spirit there, so good that we went in with the hog rider rather than skeletons because he was kind of predicting the skeletons with that e-spirit there. And I was kind of just going in with that queen of my own there, kind of expecting his queen to survive a bit longer, but it did die, so kind of just gave him a good lightning. But we are going to go with the hog rider right here, and he's going to go with the RG at the same time, but I feel like hog might get a shot here. Okay, actually doesn't manage to get a shot. He went with like the fisherman like right at the perfect time to where the hog was about to swing, but it didn't quite do it in time, so I guess it did fully counter it there. But honestly, it's not too hard to break through against RG when you're using a hog deck, because I feel like the fisherman, it does usually counter the hog, but I feel like you're gonna quite often like sneak an extra hit in there, just from some lucky thing happening. And yeah, as you can see, the hog rider did get one hit there as well against the hunter plus e-spirit. I guess he wasn't quite fast enough now. He's gonna go with a ghost plus RG there, pretty aggressive. Don't really agree with that play by him too much. I think we're gonna defend pretty easy with the cannon plus Valkyrie here. And as you can see, like we're always pulling the RG as far as possible by going with the cannons in the opposite lanes. We're always trying to like maximize the value of our defensive units here, because we do have good defense against the RG, but we don't have like too many counters too. We just have like quite limited counters, so we have to like make sure we're using each card as effectively as possible, and that's what we're doing. So defense pretty good right here. And as you can see, like so he's gonna go with the RG here, and as you can see, we're always gonna be going with those high queens there. We could go with lower queens, but we don't really want to give him any possible lightning value on our tower and queen, so always going with those high queens, forcing him to pick which one he wants to lightning, which is really good for us because it allows our stuff to defend a lot better. And yeah, hog did get one shot there, almost got a second shot actually against the fisherman, so you kind of just want to focus on defense in this matchup. And you can also yeah, kind of just like try to EQ cycle and send like a hog in here and there. Alright, so we'll go with the lightning here. So this is kind of where it gets tricky against RG. Sometimes they like manage to build up like a lot of defensive units because you only have like EQ, so you don't really have any way to take their units off of the board. So gonna be a little bit difficult here. We're gonna pop the queen ability there, and it does pretty much kill the RG here. And just gonna Valkyrie right here, try to finish off the rest of his stuff. And he will go with like a really bad lightning in my opinion, and just gonna allow us to get like a free EQ on his tower. And he's gonna go with RGs at the bridge, kind of just in desperation, and our hog will get one shot there, so I think an EQ should finish this off, and that will be a good game. Alright, hopping in the next match here, we're gonna be using hog rider with giant skeleton here, so yeah, should be a pretty fun deck to try out. And right now we're like right around 30 wins, so basically how it works is the top 128 players will qualify for the next stage of CRL. So to ensure that your top 128 is usually going to be like around maybe like 34 wins or so. So just need like a few more wins here and we should be able to qualify, hopefully. Gonna do my best. And yeah, gonna be up against some Skeleton King deck here. This is super bad for us. Oh no. Okay, those bats are gonna take like most of our tower here. Okay, that was a super bad start. Wasn't really even paying too much attention there, but we kind of just lost like half of our tower from Skeleton King. So the one annoying part of running Giant Skeleton is that you don't have like the Valkyrie to kill their Skeleton King very well, so you do struggle sometimes against kind of just like random matchups. But yeah, gonna go with the Queen here to kill the Dirt Goblin, and yeah, he will Fireball here, but our Queen does manage to get one shot on his mortar, so at least we should be up a few elixir, I think. And yeah, and by the way guys, I am running Fireball in this deck right now. I feel like Earthquake is still viable in it, but I feel like Fireball is also quite good, and I kind of just like want to run it in this deck right now, just so that we can have like a decent matchup against people who use like a lot more of like the heavier decks. I'm not really seeing like too many cycle decks. Like obviously there are like quite a few cannons and quite a few tombstones and stuff, but I don't really see like too much of those stuff, so I feel like it's better to just go with the fireball, but you guys can test out both of them and decide for yourself. Alright, so yeah, Giant Skeleton will distract the water there, so we are keeping our tower alive just barely and kind of chipping away little by little here. Not really sure if we're going to be able to win by this point, because it is quite far in the game, but Giant Skeleton will catch the mine, which is pretty nice for us. And yeah, honestly our only real hope of winning here is by using the Giant Skeleton push mechanic, where it sometimes can like push the Hog Rider out of range of like a building or something. So yeah, that's kind of like the one reason why I feel like you don't always need Earthquake in this deck. It's because like sometimes the Giant Skeleton will allow you to bypass the buildings with the Hog Rider, so you don't always like have to go with the extra stuff. And he is being quite aggressive right here, going with like the miner plus log there and kind of wasting the bats. So I'm gonna try to go with the Giant Skeleton push right here. Not really sure if it's gonna work out. Yeah, so Hog will go straight towards the mortar, and we do have to log this army as well, but I will go with the NATO to make the Dart Goblin go to the other lane, and Hog actually does manage to score 2 shots, so there's a chance we could come back here. He does have, I think he does have some spells. Yeah, he does have Fireball, so he will be able to get direct damage, but we just have to go in all in with the Giant Skeleton right here. Hoping we can get like the Hog push mechanic off or something like that, and he does actually go with the log on the Giant Skeleton, but yeah, and Hog will go for the mortar, but oh man, oh man, oh man. Okay, Giant Skeleton will walk on the tower, and wow, that was crazy close. Gonna be yelling a little bit right there. Alright, hoping in the next match here, we're going to be using Giant Skeleton Hog, but this time I did put in skeletons, and I also did put in Earthquake, so instead of having like Fireball plus guards, this time we have skeletons plus Earthquake. I feel like Earthquake isn't quite as powerful in like most of the cycle decks, like the normal Hog EQ cycle deck, but I feel like it still gets the job done pretty well in the more heavier decks, because it's really just used to counter buildings, so you don't really need it to have such good like damage against the towers. You more of just want it to break through instead. So I also did decide to put the skeletons, that way we have a little bit of a faster cycle, even though guards are kind of nice for DPS, so it could be a little bit worse against some stuff like Royal Giant maybe, which is kind of going around right now in this tournament. So does have some downsides, but in tournaments like these it's kind of just like about sniping the opponents and what decks they use near you. Like at each range of the global tournament there's going to be like some more popular decks that people use, so you kind of just want to play whatever fits best for you in that trophy range, or I mean that win range. So that's kind of the best way to do things, and I feel like this deck should work pretty well in the range that I'm in right now. And yeah, so it looks like we will be like up against Lumberloon Freeze right here, so I am pretty happy to have the Tornado and the Tombstone here, but we don't have Fireball, and Fireball would help quite a bit in this matchup, so that's like the only thing that I'm not like too happy about, because it will be like a little bit hard when he starts like making those huge pushes. But luckily we do have Giant Skeleton, which can kind of like blow up all of his stuff, and he has actually missed the Tornado there too. So in a matchup like this we kind of just want to be a little bit passive, going in with Hogs sometimes, but not like overly aggressive when we can counter push well. So you kind of just like want to cycle your cards, play Hogs sometimes, maybe get a few Earthquakes off, and just like Giant Skeleton to always block up the lane when they try to make a huge push, because even though the Death Bomb is weaker than it used to be, it still will like take off half of the HP of the majority of those units that he just played right there. So yeah, it should work pretty well here. Giant Skeleton Death Bomb will hit pretty much everything. Honestly, it didn't really do as much damage as I thought to the boulder, but still better than nothing. And we're going to force out the NATO on the Hog Rider too, and we should be able to activate King Tower here. So that's the really nice thing of having a building plus a Tornado. You can always activate your King Tower super easily against building decks. So should help us quite a bit here to have that activated King Tower. And his Inferno Dragon should pretty much die to the Death Bomb, maybe a couple Queen shots as well. And I will go into the Hog Rider here, because I think even if he goes with the Lumberjack, it should still be one shot on his tower. Yeah, so you have to be a little bit careful here on the counter push, but yeah, but the Tombstone will actually pull the balloon no matter what placement it is if you play it in that spot in the same lane that they're going with the balloon in. So yeah, should have defense on lockdown here. Hopefully the giant skeleton death bomb can like maybe hit a few of his things, and it actually might be in range of the tower. Yeah, actually somehow got in range of the tower. Now we just need to cycle another EQ, but we do have Queen on the field, so okay, just gonna go with the log EQ there. Kind of panicked for a second, wanted to go for the NATO, but that will be a good game right there. He barely survived 1 HP there. Alright, hopping in the next match, we're going to be facing this guy, and we will be running Mortar here, so I feel like Mortar is actually quite underrated right now. Like, some people do rank the Mortar really high in their tier lists and stuff, but I feel like a lot of people underestimate it, and it is actually quite strong, especially in the global tournament. A lot of the top players are using it, and yeah. And you guys might be wondering why I went with the miner in the back right there. It's just because I know this guy's also playing like some weird giant graveyard deck with Sparky, because I did face him earlier in the tournament. I am pretty high wins right now, so most of the players that I'm facing are gonna be people who I faced before or I'm kind of familiar with. So yeah, I do know what this guy is playing, but I actually subbed in Poison here. I was running this deck before I started recording with some other changes. Like, I did have Fireball over Poison, but I actually decided to put Poison after facing this guy because it's quite hard to deal with Graveyard when you don't have the Poison in this deck. And yeah, it might be a little bit awkward here to defend this Sparky, so just gonna go with Miner plus Skeletons here. Should at least force out something. And yeah, pretty important that we did that right there. It might seem like a bit of an aggressive play, but it is going to force out the Hunter, so now he's not really going to be able to support his Sparky too much, and should be able to defend pretty well right here. Gonna go with the Log on the Hunter as well. And yeah, now we kind of just have to be careful on defense here, see what he uses against that. Alright, so he will go with the Barbs at the river right here, so gonna go with the Valkyrie. Don't really have any other choice. I'm pretty sure he does have Skeleton King, but didn't really have any other good answer. And we do have Miner on defense whenever we need it, so it is a little bit hard to get chip damage since we have to put our Mortar on defense most of the time, but the Fire Spirit's always going to do a really good job right here. And yeah, and in a matchup like this, you kind of just like want to always keep your Mortars for defense pretty much, unless you know that they're just like in a perfectly awkward cycle to where they can't really punish you for it. But besides that, you just want to play defense, use your poisons on defense, and yeah, your Fire Spirits actually are usually your main dealer of damage in a matchup like this, but I will go with the Mortar on offense here just because we had a really successful defense right there. He is still going to have to spend the Barbarians on the Archer Queen, so worked out pretty well for us here. And Valkyrie will also kind of block the Hunter here, so yeah, going to force out a good amount of Elixir, and he will go with the ability as well, so yeah, pretty successful right here. Going to go with the Miner too, and yeah, so it looks like he was Sparky here, so I'm gonna go with the Mortar here. Should force out like an early Giant from him. And yeah, so what's really good about that right here is that it will kind of split the Sparky up from the Giant, and I'm actually gonna poison the Sparky here because we have an Archer Queen on the field, so we should be able to cycle back to another poison really quickly if we need it for the graveyard. But we will go with it super aggressively right there, so I don't even think we need it because the Valkyrie will do a super good job at taking care of the Barbarians right there. And yeah, Valkyrie gonna clean up the Sparky super nicely too, so gonna go with another Mortar on offense. You can see that we're being really calculated with our Mortars, and he will actually Sparky exactly when we placed our Mortar, so Mortar is gonna get a lock on his tower, and I won't like overcommit to defend the Mortar. Not really gonna like stop his Giant from killing it, but just gonna make sure that we can defend well right now, because last thing we'd want is to like choke last second from being too aggressive. So gonna go with the Queen ability here, gonna go with the Valkyrie on top of everything as well, and yeah, Queen will clean up the Sparky really nicely. And I'm gonna BM this guy quite a bit because he did BM me a lot before as well, so I do apologize for that, guys. Not sure if you guys are annoyed at that or not, but yeah, pretty much the MVP of this matchup is the Fire Spirit. Alright, hopping into the final match, we're going to be using Giant Skeleton Hog once again, so pretty fun deck right now, and we are going to be facing this guy, so I'm just going to be a little bit passive at the start. You don't really have to be too aggressive with this deck as you kind of can be with the normal Hog cycle deck, because it is a bit more heavy, so it is pretty good in double elixir too and later in the game. And we are going to be running the EQ variant here, so yeah, I feel like the EQ variant is a little bit more solid in general. I mean, maybe not quite as solid, but it really just depends on how good you are as a player. Like, I feel like the Fireball version might be better for starters, but I think the Earthquake version is probably a bit better if you're a master at this type of Hog deck. So really up to personal preference, and looks like Earthquake actually will be quite beneficial for us here because we are going to be facing an Elixir Pump player, and Fireball is honestly pretty bad against Elixir Pump now ever since the buff it got. And yeah, Elixir Pump has actually been super meta recently because there's barely any Earthquake now just because of the emergency nerf they got. And okay, Giant Skeleton actually got super close to the tower. Thought it would get the bomb there, but I think it's just going to be just barely off. But yeah, looking pretty fine right here. We do have skeletons as well, so even though we won't really have the guards for like his bridge spam units, but at least we do have the skeletons for a little bit of a cheaper cycle, so hopefully we can keep up with him. And yeah, but skeletons are kind of nice right here, like to stop stuff like his barbarian barrel. Not really going to force us to use the 3 elixir that guards cost, just going to be able to defend it super cheaply. And yeah, not really sure why he keeps going with elixir collectors here, kind of just giving us a free positive elixir trade every time. Earthquake always gets a positive 1 elixir trade against elixir collectors, and it's actually the only spell that will get a positive elixir trade on a elixir collector besides like a goblin barrel or something like that. So yeah, and he will actually go with 3M right there. Wasn't really expecting it, but it's actually a pretty good play to like tornado 3M all into one lane if you're playing like a deck like this, because will just allow your giant skeleton bomb or like your your log and whatever else to like fully counter everything like way easier. But I wasn't really expecting it right there. So yeah, and he actually is going to go with a mirror elixir collector. Wasn't really expecting that, but we're already going to be back to another earthquake, and it should be able to defend it pretty well. It will get a couple elixir back for him, but overall I think it's still a positive 1 elixir trade for us. And yeah, so he's really stacking these elixir collectors. Don't really agree with that play by him. I think it would have been better for him to just like defend and use his 3 musketeers more, but he's going to go with the 3 musketeers there. But even though it's the opposite lane of our giant skeleton, I'm still going to tornado them there. Going to allow our log to pretty much like wreck everything. And yeah, he's probably going to go for a final push here, so just going to earthquake. Don't really want to mess around with the heal spirits. They can like completely change everything. Like sometimes you think you're defending a push really well, but then the heal spirit ruins it, and that will be good game. So thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!